Alright, today we are going to be watching a BattleBit Identity Crisis video as brought to you by Camikaze78. Apparently there's some developer confusion going on in the BattleBit Remastered realm, and I'm going to take a look at it today and see what Cami has to say about this. Now, Cami is the guy that I get all of my BattleBit news from anymore, as I've stopped following the game completely. A few butthurt people chime in every once in a while in the comments sections of my previous BattleBit videos, and then I just they drop some kind of cope, and then I'm like, oh hey, by the way, the game's still fucking dead. But anyway, let's see what Cammy has to say about this, shall we?
Remastered could be going through arguably one of the biggest challenges that faces any game out there. I think it's going through a bit of an identity crisis right now, and that's something that I've been feeling as though would rear its...
What are you wearing? Was this some Mad Max fucking jacket on? Look at this.
Something that I've been feeling as though would rear its ugly head for a long time now. While yes, the game is basically 6 months old if you look at it from its early access launch date, BattleBit's history is one that spans years of development, and even from a core gameplay design, BattleBit looked very different in its early years from what we have today. So, is BattleBit on the cards to change forever from what we're used to today? G'day there once again viewers, your mate Camikaze78 here, and today folks, let's talk about BattleBit's biggest challenge yet. So far,
Okay, I'm gonna link the original video in the description. Go like and subscribe to Cammy, he's awesome.
folks, yeah.
He was pushing for partner on Twitch, but this game fucking died so hard and became so irrelevant that he was unable to collect the partner status, which he deserves and should have had, but unfortunately he strapped his carriage to a dead, failing niche game that's suffering from some developer confusion.
This is something that I've been expecting to discuss over time here on the channel at some point or another. There have been hints, promises, murmurings, discussions in the development streams, and even things making their way into the game that all point towards the game shifting focus, shifting into something different, almost as though the game has a different vision entirely. But to understand this, we need to go back in time and look at BattleBit from the past. BattleBit Remastered started out as nothing more than just BattleBit, and it was none other than a milsim game. The developers loved the milsim genre of games, but found that there were very few games out there in the genre that were capable of running on lower end systems. It was a gap in the market.
That to me is kind of a confusing thing, because when I think of people who want to play milsim games, I think it's people that don't necessarily care about high refresh rates or high frame rates in general. I think I would guess that most people who fall into the milsim crowd probably are fine with 60 FPS or lower. I would guess that most of those people don't run high refresh rate, like above 144 hertz monitors. Or if they do, that's the max they're running. So not having a milsim game, that doesn't really sit well with me. That doesn't really make sense to me. That people needed a niche milsim game that runs way better. I honestly don't think those people care.
That could be filled, and hey, why not give it a go with BattleBit, right? Obviously though, that's not where we are today. Ultimately, the game shifted into what
The fuck is happening on the screen?
we know and love today. BattleBit Remastered. More of an arcadey, somewhat casual first-person shooter experience with some milsim elements.
This game was an extremely casual, arcade-ish experience that could have been a good game, except it had a bunch of, like, vestigial milsim mechanics wrapped around it for no other reason than the developers wanted the game to be a milsim.
Elements sticking around to add some flavor to the game for better or for worse. And
for worse.
Because of this change in direction, many have described it as a low-poly Battlefield game above all else, which, let's be honest here, is a pretty accurate assessment all things considered. Now obviously, there's a lot more going on here between point A and point B for us to get to where we are today, but for the purposes of this video, there's not really too much of a reason to go into it. The important part is the context of BattleBit and where it started out as. That being a more milsimmy, tactical style first-person shooter. The developers wanted the game to be a competitor to the likes of Squad or Hell Let Loose, but
yeah, but the way that they made the game, like, first of all, the movement in the game is way too fast if you honestly want to have these. What strikes me more and more about the BattleBit devs is how seemingly ignorant they are of, like, very basic fundamental concepts. If you want to make a milsim squad type game, then the first thing you can't have the movement that you have in BattleBit Remastered. Like, that's number one. So
obviously, over time, it became and molded itself into this pseudo-competitor to the Battlefield franchise, and the timing to this was perfect, with Battlefield 2042 being a colossal flop, and many of the community just going, "Nope, fuck you EA, and fuck you."
It's not just that the game is a commercial flop. The game is an utter fucking disaster, and a technical failure. Every single possible way that game can fail. It failed. It failed on a technical level. It failed on a game design fucking level. It fails on a weapon balance level. It fails on a UI level. It fails in every possible fucking aspect to this day. It fails from a content level. It fails from a community feedback and fucking, like, everything about that game. Almost every single facet of Battlefield 2042 is an utter failure to this day.
You Battlefield for ruining this franchise. BattleBit was there to reap the benefit.
Oh, and by the way, DICE has shit on the franchise for the last 2 games, and people only forget about Battlefield 5 because 2042 exists. Battlefield 5 is still objectively fucking terrible. It's a terrible game. It's poorly balanced. The mechanics in it fucking suck. The only thing that is probably decent about Battlefield 5 is that it's not 2042.
It was fastly coined as the game that was, quote,
you guys have to stop saying that Battlefield 5 is somehow good now because 2042 sucks. That's not how it works.
Unquote, taking Battlefield to school. It was here, and people loved it for what it was, at least for the short term, as we've seen with the Steam player charts. Again, what's important to remember here is that the commentary around the game heavily advertised it as an arcade-ish, large-scale shooter that was casual and fun enough to jump into for a few hours with your buddies and have a good time in.
And that's fine, and that's what a lot of people said, and that's why I tried the game out. But I knew the underlying issues with the game that I wouldn't like. I knew all the features I wouldn't like, and lo and behold, when I logged into the game and played the game, all the features that I said I wouldn't like, I didn't like. And what are those features? The shitty milsim aspects of the game that seem like, well,
reminiscent to that of the good old Battlefield days, which is where I know I've gotten my most amount of enjoyment out of the game. But as of late, it's become abundantly clear that the developers never envisaged the game going in this way. And when you hear about...
Yeah, but you guys are the ones making the game, no? And you had a bunch of milsim shit in the game. That's why I stopped playing your game. You had enough milsim in your game so that I stopped being interested in your game right from the start. And I've never ever picked it up or played it again. I never refunded the game. I still have it in my Steam library because I thought maybe you guys would get with the picture and stop trying to somehow cater your game to the present and 2005, which is not, it's oil and water. But you never really did that, and now I'm hearing this shit.
The devs talking about the game and the state it's in now, there almost seems to be this growing sense of, I want to say resentment, but I'm not sure if that's the right word to use here, around what the game has become nowadays. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to catch the latest development stream, but from what I've heard from other members of the community who did watch that stream, lead developer Sergeant Okidoki and the wider team almost sounded as though they were disappointed with the pace of the gameplay of BattleBit and how it's molded over time since players have gotten their hands on it. You know, being...
I mean, this is just another classic example of the developers of the game are probably shitters. They're probably shitters, and that's fine. That's fine. If you're a milsim shitter, that's totally fine. But when you make your game and give it to the general public, these guys always forget. You guys forget that not everyone is as awful at video games as you are. Not everyone bot walks around and pretends they're playing a milsim game. Not everyone is the same as you. I know you like to believe that everyone is the same as you, but we're not. We're not. There are people, a lot of people who are fucking way better than you. And if you put anything, not everybody, I don't understand how you can be surprised or shocked when you make a game that can potentially have movement like this game has. Just like the baseline running around is relatively quick. And the jumping and like the moon fucking gravity physics and stuff, like how you cannot understand that is going to be the way your top players or the people that are still playing your game, that good players are going to be able to take advantage of that. This reeks to me of people who are in a gross casual shitter milsim niche bubble that, like, of course they were going to play that way. What do you mean? It's like when Twitch changed their TOS and said that you could draw fucking dog dicks and animal dicks and fucking for 24 hours, the most degenerate, furry, subhuman, loser, anime, cringe retards, all they did all fucking day was draw fucking porn on Twitch. And then the next day, they come out and be like, oh, we couldn't have seen this coming. Huh? What the fuck do you mean you couldn't have seen this coming? What do you mean, BattleBit devs? What do you mean, BattleBit devs? That you couldn't... You resent the fact that the players played your game in a method that you allowed them to play the game in by its very design. How fucking clueless are you guys?
Disappointed with the fast-paced zooming around with lightning-fast gameplay that was arcadey in nature, the complete opposite of what they envisaged the game being originally when they put it out to the market.
This totally reeks to me of, like, if a Reddit shitter, if a milsim Reddit shitter, the kind of person I've been arguing with for a decade now, made their own game, right? And then they walked in on it. It's seemingly they play the game a certain way, right? And then they can't they're so ignorant, they can't possibly imagine that someone could play the game at a higher level. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? You gave players movement, you gave them laser beam gunplay, and super fast time to kill. What the fuck did you think? What did you think was going to happen?
And as a result, this has led to some conversations around changing the game at its core design to better bring it back in tow with the likes of their original vision.
Yeah, but why now? Why are you having this conversation in December now? Your game launched in the latter parts of June, right? And you guys weren't talking about this when your game was being a relatively massive success for the studio that it is, for the brief time that it was very successful and had a lot of people logging in, you know, for the 30 to 60 days after launch. You guys weren't talking about that then, and you seemed plenty happy enough to roll back some of the milsim stuff. You know, you seemed plenty happy enough to roll back some of the milsim stuff when you were experiencing success, but since I guess your game is fucking floundering dead as fuck, you're kind of over the hype train, you're getting off the wave of it now, and you want to go back to what you wanted the game to be originally. Okay.
However, and I cannot press this enough, guys, the risks that sit here looming over BattleBit should this course of action be taken are monumental in my view.
Yeah, but are the risks really that high? Because the game has shed a massive, massive amount of the population already. Who's still playing this? If I had to guess, the people that are still playing this game are the people who enjoy the arcade casual nature of the game. And they probably don't want to play a milsim because, listen, guys, I know this is hard to believe. If you want to play milsim, there's a lot of other games to go play milsim in. And especially back to the beginning of the video, the point that BattleBit needed to be a lower performing, runs on all systems milsim game. I don't think milsimmers care about that very much. I think a lot of milsim players will be perfectly happy playing 30 to 50 FPS and milsimming. So your game is already falling off a cliff. It's getting to be super niche already. It already has less players than the games that it supposedly dethroned. By the way, and two of those games are the worst games the studio has ever made, and you're pulling fewer numbers than those two games.
We've already started to see some changes make their way to the game as testers for this design direction, if you will, sort of to dip your toe in the water again. At the time of writing this video, a new audio system was implemented to the game that, while yes, would try to prioritize enemy audio sources over friendly ones, which is a very arcadey
I mean, okay.
feature, I must say, it also introduced a feature that would see your audio become muffled and almost muted whenever you took a hit from damage. This was done to heavily discourage blind rushing in when taking damage and to encourage more tactical gameplay by simply ridding you of situations.
Okay, guys, this is the thing, guys. Tactical to roleplay milsim LARPing retards means an animation or careening the game to a complete stop. If you've played any of these games, the quote-unquote tactical players are always the people that center around a choke point and they stand there and they don't do anything. That to them is tactical fucking gameplay, which is the complete opposite of what moves matches along and what helps your team, propels your team to a victory. For the sound thing, muffling your audio when you get shot or take damage, that's something I'm pretty familiar with. As if any of you play Rainbow Six Siege, and Siege to some extent is having this problem too. There's a lot of visual clutter in that game. There's a lot of stuff when you get shot down to a certain amount of HP, and when you're getting shot, your screen blurs. Your sound starts to get fucked up. That's a thing I've played with for a long time. And for that game, it's a 5v5 competitive shooter. Like, I guess it works in that, but I don't want that in a game like this. I would not want that in a game like this. Like, I don't understand the point of making a game that has super high visual clarity and then putting a bunch of dumb shit in the game that gets rid of the player agency just to pretend that it's more tactical, because they don't want people rushing through and taking damage. They want to slow the game down. I see this a lot now, and this is a sentiment that I hear a lot from developers, is they all want to slow their games down. But in Siege's case in particular, trying to slow the game down has sped the game up. Coincidentally enough. And they haven't realized this, so they keep doubling down on trying to slow the game down, but they don't realize that they're speeding the game up. Because the players, the mechanics and the shit they're doing to the maps and the new maps they're putting into the game are so big and cavernous that it's making the average player say, I don't want to drone anything. I don't want to play tactically. I don't want to do any of this. I want to take a 10% chunk of this giant, huge map and push that and exploit that as hard as I can. It's the player base adapting and evolving to what the developer is giving you, and they're doing a good job, and that it's working. So the speed up the play pace and play of the game and take gunfights part of the game is still winning out. And they're not able to slow the game down. Now, as that relates to this game, I don't think, like, trying to change the behavior at this point, you guys have to realize that this game is a niche dead game already. And now massively trying to swing back the other way? Okay. I want to and not massively swing back the other. It's not like this game was a milsim game already, which it kind of sits on the fence like 50-50. It would be different if this game started as a pure milsim game and then it lost all of its popularity that it gained for some reason, and then they were trying to swing back and make it more appealing to a bigger audience. In this case, it launched as a 50-50 fence sitter. It lost all of its popularity. It lost 90+% of its players already. And now it's trying to swing back, or they're thinking about trying to swing the game into an even more fucking niche, dead, irrelevant subsection of an FPS genre. I gotta ask, guys, what is wrong with these developers?
Situational awareness. But it's safe to say that the community really despised this approach. So much so to the point that it's on track to be reverted immediately and revisited at due time. And again, this is just an example of changes that aim to reel BattleBit back into the pace and flow that better matches that of a more tactical, milsim-ish game. And while, don't get me wrong, the game is in its early access period, and this is well and truly the best time to test.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. Give it up with the early access shit, man. The game's launched. It's out. This whole shit with the early access. Like, come on. Like, tell me that next month they're going to have an announcement that the game is officially launching. Yeah, you think you're going to have 86,000 players next month now that the game is officially launching and out of early access? Give me a fucking break. Give it up with the early access shit. I told you guys this would be the fucking thing. This will be one of the things that these people go to when the game inevitably craters. It, well, it's just an early access game, and they're testing stuff, and what? Get the fuck out of here.
Like this,
whatever.
To see how it lands. I also feel like the, let's call it, pseudo ship has sailed for BattleBit and its ability to really start testing the waters on what it can be as a game. Allow me to explain that.
Yeah, at this point, it is. This is what people know the game as.
Yeah. BattleBit's identity in the eyes of the wider public has been formed, quite concretely in some places. People know what to expect from the game when they log into it now. A fun, functional, arcadey shooter that is just great to jump into with a couple of mates if you feel like getting some chill games in after a long day at work. And for those who take on board a slightly sweatier approach, it's a game that allows you through good movement mechanics and gunplay mechanics to excel and really work on your skills as a player.
And that portfolio, that profile of the game is perfectly fine. It's a perfectly fine game that's acceptable, and you can have that be in that position. But that's not good enough for Sergeant Retard or whatever the fuck his name is. The guy literally has a fucking, like, bro. Look, I'm going to let you guys in on something. I was a sergeant in the United States Army, right? But you know what I don't do? My online handle is not Sergeant Lex. Like, because that's fucking cringe. And anybody that has a military fucking rank in front of their name online, in online discourse, and as your persona, you're fucking cringe.
That identity has been formed.
And that comes from someone who's actually in the military. And actually had the ranks that you guys put in front of your fucking stupid little names. It's fucking cringe.
Formed with BattleBit now. The concrete...
Especially if you didn't serve.
Is set within the gaming community. We now know what this game aims to bring us.
Cringe.
So to make design changes now that go against that identity, I mean...
And you're a milsim
Imagine it. There's a lot of people who bought BattleBit who have obviously taken a big break from it since the release. The player count numbers tell us this. Could you imagine the degree of separation and this isn't what I paid for we would see if we opted to take such a giant leap from what the game launched as to be a more tactical and milsim-driven product? It would really be a harsh separation from what people have come to expect from the game, and I
But like, if that's what they wanted the game to be at the beginning, why didn't they do that? Why did they go completely 180 degrees the other way when they were experiencing their big boom and success launching the game? Why were they removing those features that I guess underneath the surface they were inwardly resentful of removing, just to come back fucking what? July, August, September, October, November, December, to come back 6 months later and want to shift the entire direction of the game.
I suspect would drive the target audience from the game right off a cliff into something.
This is the question I had when I did my initial review of the game is, what the fuck do you want the game to be? Because since the beginning of the game, the messaging is so fucking confused. It's like a teenage girl. Like, what do you guys want your game to be? Because the way you designed it, this is why it confused people. And everybody that I looked at that I know as a good player of FPS games said the same fucking thing. What kind of game do these guys want you to play? Because on one hand, you have the arcadey casual shit with the movement and the gunplay. And on the other hand, you have this magazine shit system, this fucking shit-ass bleeding mechanic, like all this trash milsim garbage that's shoehorned and combined together to make this Voltron of a confused-as-fuck game. Like, can you guys figure out what game you want to make?
Very, very niche as well. Now, that's not to say that that's always a bad thing.
No, it's not. There's a place for milsim. There's totally a place for milsim. There's a ton of games to do it. But the confusion, and my overall confusion, and a lot of people's confusion, comes from the fact that you tried to blur the lines between the two, have your cake and eat it too, and then when that version of the game stops having players and the game falls off a cliff, no one's interested and it becomes niche, you want to take the wheels and go and fucking go immediately hard left and turn it into a milsim game. You want to slow the game down. What have you guys been doing for 6 months?
You know, games picking out very specific target audiences and niches to really, really hammer down on can lead to dedicated and long-lasting communities that, you know, have found a game that speaks directly to them, and that's a good thing to have. But if I'm being honest, I would argue that BattleBit has already found its target audience in the exact kind of game that it is.
Yeah, it's a kind of boring, generic, niche, sub 10,000 player FPS game with some shitty milsim mechanics in it, low graphical fidelity, and too many game modes.
Right now. And to sort of throw that out the window now,
that's what your game is,
and start from scratch with a game that is completely different in core gameplay design would be suicide, in my humble opinion.
I mean, you can't kill what's already dead. So
BattleBit has truly become something special for a lot of people out there as a reminder as to what good, arcadey, first-person shooters can play like when they're built well. And I do understand that the developers seem to have grown some degree of separation from what BattleBit is now versus what they once wanted it to be, or maybe even still want it to be to this day. But ultimately, folks, if it were up to me, I feel like we should really be celebrating BattleBit's identity and what it's carved itself out as in the industry right now. That being an arcadey, easy to jump into and enjoy first-person shooter as it is right now. The way the game plays has bred some of the best gaming moments that I've had in a long time. And to step away from that with the goal of really hammering down on the tactical shooter environment just doesn't sound like it's the right call for me. And it really does show in some of BattleBit's development decisions as of late, and it really does feel as though the game is going through an identity crisis of such. And I'm obviously extremely biased as someone who does like to move and schmoove around and get some cracking kills here and there, but ultimately, I still view this game, even for the more casual player, as a better alternative than if we had gone down the milsim approach with a game like this. Now, obviously, that puts the developers in a tricky position of having to work on / maintain a game that they may lose passion for because, well, again, if you aren't working on something that's, you know, leading to a result that you want, then, well, you're going to lose passion for it pretty quickly, and that's not going to do yourself any.
It's weird you only had... like, it's so confused to me. And I keep getting back to that. And it's been confused since launch. And I just...
favors in delivering good products. One silver lining that the developers do seem to be exploring is converting their milsim-ish plans that they once had for the game into a dedicated milsim mode for battle.
Great. Another that all the game needs is with a failing, waning player base is another niche game mode that no one's gonna play.
That will release in due time.
Yeah, you guys can. The devs are gonna make that game mode so them and fucking a couple hundred other people are gonna play in it. Like, guys, it's not fucking 2005 anymore. The old Battlefield, the Refractor Battlefield games are so fucking outdated. The gameplay sucked. I was there. I played them. Like, give it up. It's not 2005. I remember 2005, okay? It was great, you know? But it's not 2005 anymore. Nobody wants to play this shit. It's over. We've moved on. And for as bad as a lot of the modern games are, as bad as a lot of them are, they're still better, and I'd rather play those games than another shitty milsim refractor Battlefield game that I've already played for thousands of fucking hours. Grow up. Grow up. Grow up.
Now, there are some benefits to this, of course, including the fact that it builds out the ecosystem of game modes that are available in BattleBit, thus
There's already too many game modes. What the fuck? They have like 3 different Conquest game modes. They didn't have fucking Breakthrough. They didn't have Frontlines, TDM, Domination, Capture the Flag. Like, what the fuck else? How many game modes can you... 2042 has this problem too. 2042 has more players than this game, and it has a bunch of game modes. It does nothing but split the fucking player base up. When your game... PlanetSide 2 is having this fucking problem now too, man. Like, they want to add all these different ways to play the game. It's like, at some point, we need to have our capture the flag bases with multiple ways for people to play the game. It's like, at some point, your game doesn't have population like Call of Duty. You know, Call of Duty can get away with having 17 fucking different game modes because it has the endemic population to fill the game mode, so your game doesn't feel dead and empty when you log in and pick a more obscure game mode that a lot of people aren't playing. Games like this that have sub 10,000 players can get real fucking sketchy. It can get real fucking sketchy when you're talking about having 8, 9, 10 different game modes for a population that's sub 10,000 players. And some of the game modes have 256 players or whatever the fuck it is. Like, who's going to play this milsim? Who's going to play milsim BattleBit? Who's playing that? How many people are playing that? Why didn't you make that game in the first place? If it hurts your feelings so much that people are playing in a way that you don't like, Mr. Sergeant Reddit BattleBit dev,
attracting more players, and I don't discount that at all.
These guys are so out of touch with reality. They're in such a fucking autistic bubble. And milsim FPS players are in a huge, massive milsim retard autist bubble.
It also does mean that it stretches a pretty small development team extremely thinly across a lot of different projects within one game. To balance all of the weapons and all of the different gameplay designs across so many different experiences and modes for 3 people is a task that's Herculean in nature. Like, don't get me wrong, this is not a comment on the developer's ability to do it, it's just a comment on, you know, that's a massive workload for anybody to manage. And
fuck them. If they want to make a dumbass decision like that, go for it. They already took everybody's money. Go for it. Do whatever you want.
It's also worth noting
when your game's dead, irrelevant, and failed because your fucking ego killed it, like, you have no one to blame but yourselves. You guys can't self-scout. And then you'll go make another game, and you'll have the same fucking problem again, because you can't self-scout.
Focusing on a offshoot mode like the milsim mode for BattleBit Remastered, that attention does automatically fall away from the core gameplay experience that the game has right now. And by making that decision, you potentially limit the amount of work and the improvements you can make to that core game mode that arguably, I would say, has a wider target demographic than, say, a milsim mode, which may leave the game feeling stale for the majority of your player base. base. So by taking on board this jack of all trades approach and trying to manage as many experiences and making the game as, you know, widely appealing as possible to as many people as possible with all these different game modes and experiences,
Look, if you try to appeal to everyone, you will appeal to no one.
you may be becoming a jack of all trades, but you might be excelling at nothing either as well. And indie games, to maintain up pace against the big AAA guys who have the marketing firepower, you really need to be excelling at something to make that splash in the market. And I fear that BattleBit's identity crisis and the degree of things it's trying to do and the degree of identities that it's trying to encapsulate all under one banner is going to do worse for the game than it will good for the game in the long run. In saying all that though, that is just one man's view and one man's thoughts on BattleBit Remastered. I could be completely wrong for all I know, and if you guys do think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments.
I think you make pretty cogent points. Yeah, I think it's laid out pretty well. I just can't get over something stinks to me. Something stinks to me. Something here doesn't make sense. That you guys made the game and then you're confused that people who are not as awful as you play the game differently, and then you're upset that they're playing it that way. Yet you also take steps to back off your shitty milsim concepts for 6 months, and then all of a sudden you are demonstrating a resentment of that fact. And it's just, yeah, like I've been saying from the beginning, man, this game is so confused. It could have been a good game, but it was just wrapped in too many retarded milsim mechanics for me to enjoy it. And over the life of it, you're seeing their true colors are coming out. And that's ultimately that's all they wanted it to be, was just another generic, stupid, trash, milsim, garbage fucking game. And unfortunately, for what could have been a good game, the milsim fucking dead fetus that hangs off of what could be a good game will always weigh this game down, and it'll never go anywhere and never be anything because of it. So I guess that's it for me. Have a great fucking holiday. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.